Now we note that we're not going in a straight line here. It goes up and it goes down. My name is Mohamed Zakariya and I live in Arlington, Virginia. I started teaching calligraphy in 1988. This is a beautiful, beautiful example of the Nesic script with the vowels and everything ready to go.
My name is Mariam Lodin and I've been working with Hocam since I'd say 2016. We refer to our teacher as Hocam. Hocam means teacher in Turkish.
My teacher.
And Hocam means my teacher. And so there's a kind of like a possessive respect that you have for your teacher.
Yeah.
And it's it kind of establishes a strong relationship.
This doll is real nice. It's very good.
Thank you.
I'm just going to make a couple of observations with it.
So my name is Emin Leliç, and I've studied for about, I think this is my 4th year now. Calligraphy, to really learn it, requires sitting with your teacher, literally face to face, sitting down and watching your teacher do every stroke. And then you take a break, and then he pulls a book off his shelf and says, well, look at this person in the 16th century, look how he did it.
The style of calligraphy that all modern calligraphers do can, in one way or another, be traced back to Sheikh Hamdullah. There is a vitality in his writing. He took an ordinary kind of writing and turned it into something that was so brimming full of energy. This turned into a school of teachers with hundreds of people in it. And they went all the way from the Sheikh himself to Mustafa Rakam and to Hassan Chalabi, my teacher. This here is an example, a printed example that my teacher Hassan Chalabi had printed up some time back, maybe 30 years ago. And so he's taking basically a series of lessons that was originally formulated and perfected by Sheikh Hamdullah. But these things are passed from teacher to student.
Every time we sit with you, you know, it really is, for me, it's the highlight of my weeks. You know, it's the highlight of my months whenever I come
here. It doesn't
here.
get repetitious.
No, not at all, not at all.
When we come here, this is like you have the jar of wisdom and you're just... I've learned a lot, and it's really been one of the great, I think, friendships of my life. He's teaching us how to see beauty in calligraphy, how to recognize it by talking about it.
The rest is great, it's nice, but here is over the top.
Most people in most places, when you take a class, when you study something, you pay tuition.
Yeah.
And we don't pay tuition, but we pay by giving back.
Tuition would poison it.
Yeah.
Our materials, our pens, our paper, our ink, everything is given to us by our teacher. Everything is given to us by Hocam.
What is it worth? What is this knowledge that you're bequeathing us and that we're then bequeathing the next generation? Like you can't quantify it.
This part here is a little smaller than this.
So I extended this a bit too much.
Well, this part, it just goes too far that way. This is an old thing. Imagine 500 years of old men sitting behind you, all invisible, you know, but they're there and they're judging you all the time, you know. So you have to kind of pay attention. It's not as if they're really there, but they kind of are really there in a way. They say, "Go teach," you know, "Go teach." This is a pen. It's a tube made from a kind of grass that's called cane, and it's been treated by various processes to make it dark and very hard and very light. I'll use a carving knife to open it. Crack the end off. The pen is now open and these things come out. Let's put them in there. Next stage, let's find the best side to cut it on. And I can tell from looking at this area in here that this has got the hardest skin. And the skin is where most of the action takes place. So if I cut the opposite side of it, and I'm going to cut a crack in it. The crack allows the pen to open like that and allows the ink to come down and come onto the paper. Oh, it's a hard one. There. This is kind of the stabilizing point of the pen. This flat part here, you put it on a block and you cut it like that. Okay, I think I got that. Now I'm going to round it up a little bit. At this stage, the pen is technically done. While it's being used, I'll probably find some problems with it that need to be corrected. And then as you use it, it'll wear, and then it'll have to be sharpened, which is done by a nice cut to the end. It's called the screeching of the pen. And if it screeches right, everything's working good. So I'm going to take it and add the vowels to finish up the lesson. Every time I teach, it's like learning it over again. I go deeper and deeper into those letters. Now I'm going to put in the zamma, which is like this.
It took me about 2 years to pass my first lesson, and that was from the alif to the ya. So just writing the letter alif, writing the letter ba, writing the letter jim.
It's actually quite good. You're making a lot of progress.
This was actually my very first lesson I did with singular letters for the two scripts.
And now go in here. This is a little more at an angle than this. This only comes after doing it for a long time.
I have to work on steadying my hand when I do the long strokes because there's so many very long, beautiful strokes, and they have to be perfectly executed.
It should always come down to a nice sharp point like that. And then when you put your connecting line, let go halfway on and halfway off. Not here, not there, but halfway. Each lesson you do, it makes you a little better in everything that came before it. You could go back to each one of them and do it better without even having to think about it.
It's just part of your being able to do this without thought, because thought hinders the spontaneous beauty that comes out. If you're making a long stroke, for example, and then you stop and then you say, does it bend here or does it go up a bit? Then you're actually, there's a little wiggle as you're thinking this. But if it comes instinctively, then the stroke just comes.
This is a mark that means this has passed.
So passing a lesson today, it makes me happy, obviously, but I know that there's still so much more that can be done when I continue through the rest of the lessons. And it's not that these things are completely perfect, because they'll never be perfect, but you're at a state where you can then move on and the corrections will still come. You know, the precision will come more and more and more.
That's well put. We don't call it Arabic calligraphy. Most of us don't even call it Islamic calligraphy. We just call it calligraphy. If you read old Arabic books, it's called calligraphy. It doesn't have any other name. It doesn't need a qualifier. I was about 18, and I was walking down Wilshire Boulevard in Santa Monica. An Armenian guy had a rug store. I don't remember the name of it, but he had a bunch of stuff in the window, and one of the things he had in the window was this piece of artwork that had a lot of gold on it. And I'd stopped, put the brakes on, and it did a double take, and I went into the store, and I said, "Hey, what's that?" And he says, "Oh, that's some kind of Muslim writing, kid." And I said, "What is it, though?" And he says, "It's writing." And I said, "Is it expensive?" And he says, "You can't afford it, kid. Take off." And I said, "I'll find it some way." And that's what my first experience with it was. I started doing it in 1961, but I had no license, I had no training. And so I was trying to find a door. And then there was a lady who worked at the Smithsonian, a Turkish lady named Esin Atal. And she said to me, "You have an interesting talent. I want to do something for you." There's an organization, an institution starting up in Istanbul called the Research Center for Islamic History, Art, and Culture. And so I went. I got on a plane, it took me maybe a year to make the money to go. And I acquired two of the loveliest teachers of calligraphy that the world has ever provided, Hassan Chalabi and Ali Alparslan. And we became friends. And they didn't stop giving me lessons of knowledge and wisdom and insight and beauty as long as I was near them. Famous phrase, Alhamdulillah. If you ever heard it, it means thanks to God. If you want to write a calligraphic piece, number one, you got to think about what you're going to write really carefully. You find that. Sometimes it takes me months to find something that I want to write in a certain way. And then you plot it out, you do some sketches, and then you have to figure, how am I going to handle the design on this thing? Am I going to use gold? Am I going to use marble paper? Am I going to do this? Or am I going to do that? You don't make writing that makes a visual picture of what you're talking about, but it has to embody something of it. And it has to have a flavor of it in some kind of way. They might almost be visual songs, It's like you can whistle something along, or play a little tune, but it's not Beethoven, So calligraphy is the Beethoven of that kind of thing. It's composed, visual language.